how did you teach this like doctorate level class? And he's like, yeah, I just read one chapter ahead like the night before, right? So it's not even that you have to be that far ahead. You don't have to be an absolute expert in maybe it's backlinking, right? To be able to teach somebody else. And I see this a lot in the group where people are asking of, hey, my favorite kind of like learning hacks, I guess, is just this idea of learning by teaching. So I think it was in Catch Me If You Can, where Frank Abagnale was saying like, hey, they're like, how did you teach this like doctorate level class? And he's like, yeah, I just read one chapter ahead like the night before, right? So it's not even that you have to be that far ahead. You don't have to be an absolute expert in maybe it's backlinking, right? To be able to teach somebody else. And I see this a lot in the group where people are asking of, hey, how do I find a VA? Hey, can somebody share? There's one of the questions that came through recently was like, hey, can somebody share a video of training someone else, of training their VA how to do backlinks? And it's like, well, we could do that, but also there's an incredible amount of training in the training itself. Greg has his kind of like advanced backlinking training. I think he even has like a free intro that you can watch before you decide to purchase his training. And just by going through that, if you were to have to like take that training and then explain it to your mom, to a VA, to a family member, how would you break down that process? And a lot of times it's literally getting into the step-by-step. Well, first I do this. It's like, okay, well, what you might be glossing over steps 1, 2, and 3 and going straight into step 4, right? And so when you try to teach somebody else, they're like, okay, well, how do I do that particular step? And then you go, well, actually before that, let's back up a couple steps. And then it forces you to kind of like rethink through what you already know and have learned. And so by doing that and being able to like teach and share with someone else, I think it like anchors what you're learning. I don't know if you've ever found that where you're kind of good at something and then you're like forced to train a team member or a VA, or I know like you and Hanny work together. So like, you're showing her how to do something and it's like, oh yeah, I was so accustomed to doing it, but now that I have to break it down, I find areas for like, oh, we can improve this process or we can improve this strategy. And so I think that's one of the first things that you could and should do is find someone that you can teach.
Yeah, I agree. It's called I think it's called the Feynman technique.
Okay.
Right? So if you guys Google what the Feynman technique is, that's basically, he says like you should be able to explain it to a 3-year-old, right?
Yep.
Or you don't understand enough. So when you do teach stuff, you do start to try to process it and you figure out what you don't know and what you do know when you actually try to explain to someone. And then you also get a better understanding yourself. So I totally agree.
Yeah.
Great hack.
Yeah. I found that I think in growing teams, and we're growing another team right now as well too. And at the same time, a team tip for like snaps and internally here, give you guys kind of more support and resources. And then at the same time, also pulling together this idea of teams and kind of masterminding, where I think that's going to give all of us a lot more opportunity to kind of like grow, learn, and apply these new skills. So I think we got a question. I think this is, is that, that's a due diligence question. Can we use the automated through and Google Sheets tool that was post our 100 due diligence sheets? Yeah, I don't see why not. Seems like that would be totally fine to me. Honestly, when it comes to doing the due diligence sheets, in fact, I think it was like last February or so. It was literally a few weeks after I had joined. There's somewhere in the files section where I had posted kind of like I had taken the due diligence sheet that's provided in the training. I added a couple other things to it and posted it there in the group. Honestly, I think it's just a matter of like taking it very simply and just looking at like, hey, what are the most important questions to look at when you're looking for due diligence, and really understanding like, why do we do due diligence? One, it's to make sure that we're going to have traffic and customers for the niche that we're going into. Because if you're going into a niche and either there's no customers that can buy your leads from you, or there's very little or no traffic, you could rank number 1 in Google and all the rest of the search engines. And if you're not, like, if there's no traffic, it doesn't matter that you're the first one there. You're the first one there on an empty block. Is the same saying, I think it was Gary Halbert, who said like, hey, I'll give you every advantage in the book. Just give me one advantage and I'll beat you. And that's the starving crowd, right? He's like, hey, we'll have competing hamburger stands. You could have the best produce, the happiest customers, the best real estate, all that. Give me a starving crowd. I'll beat you all every day of the week. So